Music. A very powerful form of art. If done right, its composition can create a wide range of emotions, from unbridled joy to incredible sadness, and maybe even make one feel a bit of Joska. Music is an integral part of our humanity as a whole, and it's even referenced in the Bible as a form of worship. Music comes in all different forms, and it's nearly impossible to find two people with the same taste. But one of the most impactful, most influential, most artistic pieces of music out there is one called Burning Men's Soul. Burning Men's Soul was written by Taki Iwasaki for Persona Trinity Soul, an anime adaptation of the video game Persona 3. It's a jazz number that starts out with a freestyle flute in the first half before adding lyrics to the second half. The lyrics come from Climax 6 Rhapsody Vocals 2, a track from a royalty-free sampling album called Swanee House, made by Masterbits. If you haven't heard the song, then I'd highly recommend checking it out before starting the video. I'll give you a minute to pause the video and look it up. Alright, welcome back! We can continue the conversation. Now, the lyrics might seem like gibberish at first, but what if I told you each line has a secret meaning to it? A meaning that goes beyond all human comprehension. If you don't believe me, then hear me out as we take a deep dive into the lyrics of Burning Men's Soul. The first lyrics of the song are, "Check it out, I'm in the house like carpet." This may seem like nonsense at first, but in reality it holds a very dangerous premonition for the then future, now past. Carpet is glued to the ground, unable to move anywhere. If it's in your house, it will stay in your house until you hire contractors to move it. The vocalist saying that he's in the house like carpet is suggesting that he can't leave his house, exactly like much of the world during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the next line is a little tricky. The Genius lyrics say, "And if there's too many heads on my blunt, I won't spark it." But the Megami Tensei Wiki lyrics say, "And if there's too many hits on my blunt, I won't spark it." However, both versions of this line speak volumes. Let's look at too many heads first. Since I don't have personal experience with this, I'll have to trust the commentary on Genius, which explains that the author explains that he would not light up the cannabis cigarette among his peers. This is a very subtle commentary on how the rich will hoard their resources from the common people, as the heads are representative of the multitudes of those who aren't in the 1%, and the blunt is representative of more common goods, as opposed to the more expensive versions that the rich can afford. It can, however, have another meaning. Too many heads references the Hydra, a multi-headed monster from Greek mythology. When one slices off the head of a Hydra, two more take its place. It's also a commentary on how hard it is to cut off an addiction. Now let's look at this as too many hits. Thankfully, I know what a hit from a blunt is, so I don't have to do any extra research on that. This line can still be a commentary on capitalism, though in the form of looking at how quickly even common people throw things away when they stop working. It's gotten to the point where big companies have forcefully stopped letting people fix things once they wear out, so people are forced just to buy a new one. Too many hits on your phone, and the company won't let you spark it. I'll put it in my pocket and save it like rocket fuel. This line, while not a premonition, is still warning about a very dangerous crisis. Rocket fuel is one of the rarest types of fuel in the world, but why would anyone want to save it unless they had a rocket to put it in? See, rocket fuel is a metaphor for any type of fossil fuel, and I'm sure there's almost no need to explain the recent fossil fuel crisis. The vocalist needs to put it in his pocket and save it because there's precious little of it in the world. Till everybody's gone and it's cool, then I spark it up with my brother. One of the more heartwarming lines of the song. Smoking weed with someone, especially in a place where it's considered illegal, takes a lot of trust in the other. It makes sense that those who get stoned together would have a very tight and even intimate bond. When one thinks of someone they would want to have an intimate bond with, they usually picture a romantic partner. However, this is not always the case. This line suggests that bonds do not have to be romantic in order to be intimate, seeing as he calls the person he's smoking with his brother, which is slang for a close friend. His mama named him Mo, but I call him Mo Lover, a hidden reference in a place where you wouldn't expect. Let's break this down. If his mom named him Mo, then he's Mo. Simple enough. If his friend calls him Mo Lover, then that means he loves Mo. And therein lies the point of this line. Mo loves himself. A good character quality to have, but if you love yourself to the point of having a nickname about it, then at that point it's a character flaw. There was a story written about this exact same thing, the Greek legend of Narcissus. The character of Mo is a direct reference to the myth of the man who died admiring his own reflection. And he's more than a cover, he's a quilt. This is the lyricist trying to give us context to his relationship with Mo. Comparing a human to a covering is practically unheard of, but there's a very specific reason that he chose these words. Although a quilt is a type of cover, it has certain properties that set it apart from the other types of covers, namely warmth. Warmth is an easy one to compare a human to. Warmth, in a metaphorical sense, is used to describe how welcoming someone is. Saying that someone will warm up once you get to know them means that over time, they'll welcome you into more of their life. Saying that Mo is a quilt is saying that he's welcomed the lyricist into most of, if not all of, his life. We're putting shit together like the house that John built on the hill. Another hidden reference. Some may wonder who John is and why it's important that he built his house on the hill. For this, we need to take a look into a book called the Bible. In one of the stories in the New Testament, Jesus tells a parable about two men. One of the men builds his house on the sand, and the other builds his house on the rock. The one whose house was built on sand washed away, but the one whose house was built on the rock stayed strong even in the toughest storms. The parable is a metaphor for placing your faith in the right beliefs, mainly the belief in Jesus and God as the Christian faith portrays him. The term built on the rock most likely means that the house is built on solid ground, but it can also mean that it was built at a high elevation, such as being built on a hill. And with this biblical context, we can deduce that John is the Apostle John, who followed Jesus' teachings and metaphorically built his house on the rock, or, if you translate it in a certain way, hill. 'Cause this shit's gonna feel like Velvet Turtle. This line stumped me for the longest time. It seems like utter nonsense at first, but I came across an epiphany. One may think that saying turtle at the end is something akin to an exclamation, but my theory is that this song was written for someone whose alias is Turtle. This revelation will have more context later. My style fits tighter than a girdle. This seems like it would be one of the most straightforward lines of the song, but you'd be mistaken. This line is actually a very clever usage of irony, seeing how the actual song doesn't fit tight at all. However, I do believe that this is on purpose. Just like the previous line, this will have more context later. If you hate it, then you can just leave it, like Beaver. This is another part of the song that indicates being written to Turtle. Beaver is an alias for Turtle's ex. The two probably had a really rough relationship, of which Beaver ended. If Turtle hates it, they can leave it, just like Beaver left what he hated. But in a day or two, I'll make you a true believer in me. This is another religious reference. The lyricist saying that he'll make you a true believer in him is an obvious mirror to religious people being true believers in what they worship. But this has some strange implications, doesn't it? The way it's worded makes it sound like he's a god or some other form of deity. But maybe we should look at it differently. Maybe we should look at it as a dedication to Turtle once again. Looking at it that way makes it clear the lyricist is trying to shoot his shot with Turtle while they're available. 'Cause like the alphabet, you'll see. This line has deep meaning in the context of its background, but even more meaning in the context of the song. Master Bits is a German company, but not only is this song written in English, it has an English pun in one of its lines. And on top of that, Burning Men's Soul was composed by a Japanese man for a Japanese anime. The Japanese language doesn't even have the letter C in its alphabet, nor does it have a syllable making that exact noise, the closest sound being she. This line shows the genius of Burning Men's Soul by breaking language barriers. That ism kicks a rhyme, not your everyday soliloquy. Yet another line that breaks barriers. There's a stereotype that rappers are not very bright. They're seen as the type that haven't finished high school but believe they're too good for a 9-to-5, so they decide to make a career out of rap. The lyricist for Burning Men's Soul breaks the stereotype with one simple word: soliloquy. Soliloquy is a big word, it's a complicated word, and most importantly, it's a word that one wouldn't expect a rapper to use in their rap. The barrier this line breaks is not one of language, but of culture. It shows to those who are ignorant that rappers are more than their stereotype. Like Chef Boyardee, my rhyme is truly cookin'. You would think that this is another use of irony, but it goes far deeper than that. You see, Chef Boyardee is not known for being a high-quality product. It's known for being good enough at the affordable price it's marked. The lyricist saying that his rhyme is cooking like Chef Boyardee is saying that his rhyme is very subpar. This can lead one to believe that perhaps the irregularities between the beat and the lyrics were intentional in order to subvert expectations. Peace to Matty Rich, 'cause he's straight out of Brooklyn, New York. Some more evidence that the lyrics are intentionally bad to subvert expectations. Cookin' rhymes with Brooklyn, and everyone can assume that the lyricist was talking about the city in New York. However, he goes out of his way to break the rhyme and specify the place he's talking about. The reason he does this is to give the audience a brand new listening experience, one that nobody has ever heard before. I don't eat pork or swine when I dine. Once again, another reference to religion. This time, it's a reference to Judaism and Islam specifically, both of which forbid the consumption of pork. Perhaps the lyricist is telling us that he follows one of these religions. I drink a cup of Kool-Aid, not a big glass of wine or hen hein. This line is there to make the audience think. The lyricist spent 3 lines talking about smoking weed. It's not a whole lot of the song, but it is a significant portion of it. The lyricist is clearly comfortable with smoking weed. Why then does he apparently not drink alcohol? Both serve similar purposes in society as ways to stunt your brain functions temporarily so that you can forget about the worries of life, and both can be highly addictive if one isn't careful. I could give my own theories on this line, but I think it's best for each individual listener to come up with their own interpretations of it. And if you have time, I'll drop rhyme again. A warning. This isn't the last that we'll hear of this lyricist. He will come back, and that is a threat. Now that we've reached the end, we must reiterate the beginning. Burning men's souls seems like a bunch of nonsense all put together in a way that doesn't flow well and doesn't work with the beat in a satisfying way. But now that we've reached this point, we must ask, was this on purpose? Was this a new and experimental way of rapping? Does burning men's soul hold more meaning than one could ever comprehend? Probably not.